In the middle of a big, noisy city filled with tall buildings and busy streets, there was a young boy named Marcus. He lived in a small, run-down apartment on the edge of town with his mom and two younger siblings. Life wasn't easy for them. Every day felt like a battle to survive, but Marcus tried his best to stay strong for his family. Marcus's mother worked long hours cleaning offices downtown. She left early in the morning before the sun came up and didn't return until late, at night when everyone else was already asleep. Even though she worked so hard, they barely had enough money to cover their rent and put food on the table. Sometimes Marcus would skip meals just so his little brother and sister could eat. It made him feel proud that he could help, even if it meant going to bed with an empty stomach. One chilly evening, as winter began to settle in, Marcus walked home from school alone. The air was cold, and his thin jacket didn't do much to keep him warm. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him that he hadn't eaten anything since breakfast. But instead of feeling sorry for himself, Marcus thought about how lucky he was compared to others. At least he had a home to go back to and a family who loved him. As he turned the corner onto a quieter street, Marcus noticed someone sitting on the sidewalk. It was an old man wrapped in a dirty blanket, shivering slightly despite the layers of worn-out clothes he wore. A cardboard sign rested near his feet, written in shaky handwriting. "Anything helps." People passed by without stopping, some glancing at him briefly before hurrying along, while others completely ignored him. Something inside Marcus tugged at his heart. He stopped walking and stood there for a moment, staring at the man. He couldn't explain why, but he felt drawn to him. Maybe it was because Marcus knew what it was like to be hungry, or maybe it was simply the sadness in the man's eyes that touched him. Whatever it was, Marcus decided right then and there that he had to do something, even if it was small. He remembered the few coins in his pocket, the last bit of lunch money his mom had given him earlier that week. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. For a second, Marcus hesitated. If he used the money now, he wouldn't have anything left for tomorrow. But looking at the old man again, he pushed those thoughts aside. Hunger was something Marcus understood too well, and no one deserved to feel that way. Determined, Marcus crossed the street to a nearby convenience store. Inside, the shelves were stocked with snacks and drinks, but Marcus didn't waste time browsing. He went straight to the refrigerated section and picked out a sandwich and a bottle of water. They weren't fancy, just simple things, but they were better than nothing. When he reached the counter, the cashier gave him a curious look, probably wondering why a kid like him was buying food instead of candy or chips. Marcus didn't say anything. He just handed over his coins and left. Back outside, the old man was still sitting where Marcus had seen him earlier. This time, however, Marcus approached him slowly, holding out the sandwich and water. "Here," he said softly, offering them with a shy smile. "I hope this helps." The old man looked up surprised. His face was weathered and lined with age, but his eyes softened as he took in the sight of the young boy standing in front of him. "You didn't have to do this," he murmured, his voice rough but kind. "Thank you, son." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Marcus shifted awkwardly, unsure of what to say next. Then the old man added, "Not many people your age would think to do something like this. You're a good kid." Those words stuck with Marcus. No one had ever called him good before, at least not in a way that made him feel special. Most days he just felt invisible, like another face in the crowd trying to get by. Before leaving, Marcus glanced back one last time. The old man was unwrapping the sandwich carefully, savoring each bite as if it were the first meal he'd had in days. Seeing that made Marcus feel both happy and sad at the same time. Happy because he'd been able to help someone, but sad because he realized how many people like the old man were out there struggling silently. That night, as Marcus lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his stomach ached from hunger. Yet strangely, he also felt a sense of peace. He thought about the old man and wondered what his story was. How did he end up on the streets? Did anyone care about him? Questions swirled in Marcus's mind, keeping him awake longer than usual. Eventually, sleep overtook him, but the memory of the encounter lingered, tucked away in a corner of his heart. Little did Marcus know, that brief act of kindness would change his life forever. What seemed like a simple gesture, a sandwich and a bottle of water, was actually the beginning of something extraordinary. Somewhere deep down, Marcus sensed that meeting the old man was important, though he couldn't quite put his finger on why. All he knew was that he'd done the right thing, and sometimes doing the right thing is all it takes to set amazing things in motion. The days passed, and Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the old man he had met on the street. His face, his voice, and the way he had smiled after receiving the sandwich were etched in Marcus's mind. It wasn't just pity that kept him thinking, it was something deeper. There was a connection, a shared understanding between them, even though they came from completely different worlds. Marcus felt like he'd seen himself in the old man's eyes, someone fighting to survive, someone who knew what it meant to be hungry and alone. Every time Marcus walked past the same street on his way home from school, he looked for the old man. At first, he wasn't sure if he wanted to see him again or if he was simply curious. But as the days went by, finding the man became a habit. Sometimes the old man wasn't there, and Marcus would feel a strange pang of disappointment. Other times, he'd spot him sitting in the same spot, huddled under his worn-out blanket holding his cardboard sign. Each time they crossed paths, Marcus found himself stopping, even if only for a few minutes. On one of these occasions, Marcus brought an apple he had saved from lunch at school. He didn't have much, just the apple and a granola bar, but he figured it was better than nothing. When he handed the food over, the old man grinned, his teeth yellowed but still warm. "You're too kind, young man," he said, his voice raspy but full of gratitude. "Not many kids your age care about folks like me." Marcus shrugged, embarrassed. "It's not a big deal," he replied. "I know what it's like to be hungry." The old man nodded slowly, as if he understood exactly what Marcus meant. Then, surprising Marcus, he asked, "What's your name, son?" "Marcus," he answered quickly. "And you?" The old man hesitated for a moment before replying, "Harold Whitaker." The name sounded formal, almost out of place, coming from someone dressed in rags. But Marcus didn't think much of it at the time. To him, Mr. Whitaker was just another person struggling to get by, like so many others in the city. As the weeks went by, their meetings became more frequent. Marcus started bringing whatever scraps of food he could spare, half-eaten sandwiches, leftover snacks, anything he thought might help. In return, Mr. Whitaker began sharing bits and pieces of his life. He talked about how he used to love reading books when he was younger, how he once dreamed of traveling the world, and how life had taken unexpected turns that left him where he was now. Marcus listened intently, fascinated by the stories. For the first time, he realized that homelessness wasn't just about being poor. It was about losing hope, losing purpose, and feeling invisible to the rest of the world. One afternoon, as Marcus sat on the curb next to Mr. Whitaker, the old man turned to him and said, "You remind me of myself when I was your age." Marcus raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Me? Like you?" he asked with a chuckle. "How?" Mr. Whitaker smiled faintly. "When I was young, I didn't have much either, but I worked hard, stayed curious, and never gave up. You've got that same spark in you, Marcus, I can see it." Marcus didn't know what to say. No one had ever told him he had potential before. Most people barely noticed him, let alone praised him. Hearing those words from Mr. Whitaker made him feel important, special even. But there was something else about Mr. Whitaker that intrigued Marcus. Despite his ragged appearance and humble circumstances, he carried himself with a quiet dignity. He spoke clearly, choosing his words carefully, and his eyes held a depth that suggested he had lived through far more than he let on. Marcus often wondered about the life Mr. Whitaker must have led before ending up on the streets. What had happened to bring him here? Was it bad luck, a mistake, or something worse? One day, Marcus finally gathered the courage to ask, "Mr. Whitaker," he began hesitantly, "if you don't mind me asking, what happened to you? How did you end up living like this?" For a long moment, Mr. Whitaker was silent. His gaze drifted away as if he were looking into the past. Then, softly, he began to speak. "A long time ago, Marcus, I had everything. a family, a successful business, a beautiful home. I was wealthy, respected, and happy. But then tragedy struck. My wife and daughter were killed in a car accident and I fell apart. I lost my will to live, to work, to care about anything. So I walked away from it all. I gave up my money, my possessions, my identity. I wanted to disappear. Marcus listened, stunned. He couldn't imagine having so much and then losing it all in such a cruel way. "Why didn't you try to rebuild your life?" he asked gently. "I didn't think I deserved to," Mr. Whitaker admitted. "For years I convinced myself that I was better off forgotten. But meeting you, Marcus, you've reminded me of the person I used to be. Your kindness, your strength, it's inspired me to think differently. Maybe it's not too late for me to make things right again." Marcus didn't fully understand what Mr. Whitaker meant by making things right, but he could tell the old man was serious. Something inside him seemed to shift during their conversations, as if Marcus's presence had awakened a part of him that had been asleep for a very long time. Over the next few weeks, their bond grew stronger. They talked about everything: dreams, fears, regrets, and hopes for the future. Marcus confided in Mr. Whitaker about his own struggles, telling him how hard it was to watch his mom work herself to exhaustion while trying to keep his siblings fed and safe. In turn, Mr. Whitaker offered advice and encouragement, urging Marcus to stay focused on his education and believe in himself. "You're going places, Marcus," Mr. Whitaker said one evening as the sun dipped below the horizon. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And when you do succeed, promise me one thing." "What's that?" Marcus asked, tilting his head curiously. "Promise me you'll never forget where you came from. Use your success to help others, just like you helped me." Marcus nodded solemnly. "I promise," he said. And deep down, he meant it, though neither of them knew it yet. This promise would become the foundation of something extraordinary. A journey that would change both their lives forever. One crisp morning, as Marcus made his way to the familiar corner where he often found Mr. Whitaker, he noticed something different about the old man. Instead of sitting slumped against the wall with his usual cardboard sign, Mr. Whitaker stood, upright, wearing a clean coat that looked newer than anything Marcus had seen him in before. His hair was combed neatly, and his face seemed brighter, less burdened by the weight of the world. It was as if a transformation had taken place overnight. When Marcus approached, Mr. Whitaker greeted him with a warm smile. "Good morning, Marcus," he said, his voice steady and full of purpose. "I've been waiting for you." Marcus blinked in surprise. "Waiting for me? Why?" Mr. Whitaker gestured toward a nearby park bench. "Come sit with me. There's something I need to tell you." Curiosity tugged at Marcus as he followed Mr. Whitaker to the bench. Once they were seated, the old man took a deep breath as if preparing himself for what he was about to say. "Marcus," he began, "do you remember when I told you about my past, the life I used to have before I ended up on the streets?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah, you said you had a family and a business. And then something happened." "That's right," Mr. Whitaker confirmed. "But there's more to the story. Before tragedy struck, I was one of the wealthiest men in this city. I owned companies, properties, investments, things most people can only dream of. When I walked away from it all, I left behind not just my possessions, but also my responsibilities. For years, I convinced myself that I didn't deserve any of it anymore. But meeting you has changed my perspective." Marcus furrowed his brow, unsure where this conversation was headed. "What do you mean?" Mr. Whitaker leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Marcus's. "You remind me of who I used to be. A fighter, someone who doesn't give up no matter how hard things get. Your kindness reminded me that I still have a chance to make a difference even after everything I've lost. So, I decided to reach out to some old contacts. I'm reconnecting with my former life, not for myself, but for you and your family." Marcus's heart skipped a beat. "For me? What are you talking about?" The old man smiled gently. "I want to help you, Marcus. You've given me hope, and now it's my turn to return the favor. I've already started making arrangements. I'll fund your education, provide financial support for your household, and mentor you through whatever challenges come your way. My resources may be rusty, but they're still valuable, and I want to use them to change your life." Marcus stared at Mr. Whitaker, his mind racing. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Was this real? Was this really happening? "But why?" he stammered. "Why would you do all this for me?" "Because you deserve it," Mr. Whitaker replied firmly. "You've shown me that goodness still exists in this world, even in the darkest corners. You gave me food when you barely had enough for yourself. You treated me with respect when others ignored me. That kind of selflessness is rare, Marcus, and I believe in you. I know you'll use this opportunity to do great things." Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes, though he tried to blink them away. He'd spent so much of his life feeling invisible, like no one cared about him or his struggles. But here was Mr. Whitaker offering him a lifeline, a chance to break free from the cycle of poverty that had trapped his family for generations. It was overwhelming, almost too good to be true. "What do you want in return?" Marcus asked cautiously. "There has to be something." Mr. Whitaker chuckled softly. "Just one thing. Never forget where you came from. Always remember the lessons you've learned and the hardships you've faced. Use your success to help others, just like you helped me. Pay it forward, Marcus. That's all I ask." Marcus swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. "I promise," he whispered. "I won't let you down." Over the next few weeks, Mr. Whitaker kept his word. He reached out to lawyers, accountants, and former business partners, piecing together the fragments of his once thriving empire. Though he hadn't managed his wealth in years, he still had access to significant resources, and he poured them into Marcus's future. Within months, Marcus's life began to transform in ways he could never have imagined. His mother no longer had to work double shifts. With Mr. Whitaker's financial support, she was able to cut back her hours and spend more time with her children. For the first time in years, their tiny apartment felt less like a prison and more like a home. The shelves were stocked with groceries. The bills were paid on time, and there was even money left over for small luxuries like new clothes and school supplies. For Marcus, the changes went beyond material comforts. With Mr. Whitaker's encouragement, he threw himself into his studies, determined to make the most of the opportunities now available to him. He joined clubs at school, participated in community service projects, and excelled in his classes. Teachers who had once overlooked him began to take notice, praising his determination and leadership skills. But perhaps the biggest change was the bond Marcus shared with Mr. Whitaker. Their relationship evolved from casual acquaintances to something deeper, a friendship built on trust, gratitude, and mutual respect. They spent hours talking about life, sharing stories, and dreaming about the future. Mr. Whitaker became more than just a benefactor. He became a mentor, a father figure, and a source of unwavering support. Together, they also started working on a project close to both their hearts. Inspired by Marcus's act of kindness that had brought them together, they founded a nonprofit organization aimed at helping struggling families and individuals experiencing homelessness. The initiative provided essentials like food, clothing, and shelter, as well as long-term solutions such as job training programs and educational scholarships. It quickly gained traction in the community, drawing volunteers and donors eager to contribute to its mission. As the nonprofit grew, so did Marcus's confidence. He realized that he wasn't just a recipient of help, he could be a helper too. Every meal he handed out, every conversation he had with someone in need, reminded him of the day he'd given that sandwich to Mr. Whitaker. Those moments reinforced his belief in the power of compassion and the ripple effect of even the smallest acts of kindness. Through it all, Mr. Whitaker watched proudly as Marcus blossomed into a remarkable young man. He saw the same spark he'd admired in his own youth, the drive to succeed, the empathy for others, and the resilience to overcome adversity. He knew he had made the right decision in choosing to invest in Marcus's future. And yet, despite all the progress, Marcus never forgot his roots. He carried Mr. Whitaker's advice with him everywhere he went. letting it guide his actions and decisions. Whether he was acing a test, leading a volunteer event, or simply spending time with his siblings, he remained grounded in the values that had shaped him: humility, perseverance, and kindness. Little did Marcus know, this was only the beginning of his journey. The road ahead would be filled with challenges and triumphs, setbacks and victories. But with Mr. Whitaker by his side, and the lessons he'd learned etched deeply into his soul, he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the years passed, Marcus's life continued to evolve in ways that once seemed impossible. The foundation Mr. Whitaker had laid for him became a launching pad, propelling him toward opportunities he could only have dreamed of before. But it wasn't just his circumstances that changed, it was who he was becoming as a person. With every challenge he faced and every success he achieved, Marcus grew stronger, wiser, and more determined to honor the promise he'd made to Mr. Whitaker, to never forget where he came from and always pay it forward. By the time Marcus reached high school, he was no longer the quiet, hungry boy who had walked those cold streets alone. He was now a confident young man with a fire in his belly and a clear vision for his future. His grades were among the best in his class, earning him recognition from teachers and peers alike. He joined the debate team, excelling at public speaking, and became captain of the basketball team, leading his teammates with humility and determination. But what truly set Marcus apart was his commitment to giving back. Inspired by the nonprofit organization he and Mr. Whitaker had started together, Marcus threw himself into community service work. Every weekend, he could be found volunteering at shelters, organizing food drives, or mentoring younger kids in his neighborhood. He wanted to show them that no matter how hard things got, there was always hope, and always a way forward if you were willing to fight for it. Mr. Whitaker remained a constant presence in Marcus's life, guiding him through the ups and downs of adolescence. Though he had reconnected with parts of his former life, including managing some of his old investments, he never lost sight of the mission he shared with Marcus. Together, they worked tirelessly to expand their nonprofit, turning it into a beacon of hope for countless families struggling to make ends meet. One day during Marcus's junior year, Mr. Whitaker took him aside after a particularly busy week of volunteering. "Marcus," he said, his tone serious yet kind, "I need to talk to you about something important." Marcus looked up, sensing the weight behind the old man's words. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about your future," Mr. Whitaker continued. "You're an extraordinary young man, and I know you'll accomplish great things. But I want to make sure you have all the tools you need to succeed, so I've decided to fund your college education anywhere you choose to go." Marcus's jaw dropped. College? It was something he'd thought about occasionally, but it had always felt out of reach. Between tuition costs and the responsibility of helping his family, he hadn't dared to dream too big. Yet here was Mr. Whitaker, offering him another chance to change his life forever. "Are you serious?" Marcus asked, his voice trembling slightly. "As serious as I've ever been." Mr. Whitaker replied with a smile. "You deserve this, Marcus, and I have faith that you'll use your education to do incredible things, not just for yourself, but for others." Overwhelmed with gratitude, Marcus hugged the old man tightly. "Thank you," he whispered. "I won't let you down, I swear." True to his word, Marcus poured everything he had into preparing for college. He studied late into the night, applied for scholarships, and sought advice from mentors like Mr. Whitaker. When acceptance letters began arriving, he couldn't believe his eyes. Prestigious universities across the country had offered him spots, praising his academic achievements, leadership skills, and dedication to community service. In the end, Marcus chose a university known for its strong business program, a decision inspired by Mr. Whitaker's own entrepreneurial spirit. As he packed his bags and prepared to leave for campus, a mix of emotions swirled inside him. He was excited for the adventure ahead, but he also felt a deep sense of gratitude for everything, and everyone, that had brought him to this point. On the day Marcus left for college, Mr. Whitaker accompanied him to the bus station. They stood, side by side, watching the crowds bustle around them. For a moment, neither of them spoke, Then Mr. Whitaker placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Remember why you're doing this," he said softly. "Not just for yourself, but for all the people counting on you. You're going to inspire so many lives, Marcus, I know it." Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes, but he nodded firmly. "I'll make you proud," he promised. College proved to be both challenging and rewarding. Marcus thrived in his classes, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. He joined student organizations, participated in internships, and even started a chapter of the nonprofit he and Mr. Whitaker had founded. Everywhere he went, he carried the lessons he'd learned from his mentor: kindness, perseverance, and the importance of lifting others as you climb. During breaks, Marcus returned home to visit his family and check in on Mr. Whitaker. Their bond remained as strong as ever, though Marcus noticed subtle changes in the old man. Time had taken its toll. Mr. Whitaker moved more slowly now, and his hair had turned completely gray. Still, his spirit remained unbroken, and his pride in Marcus only grew stronger with each passing year. By the time Marcus graduated from college, he had earned top honors and secured a job offer from a prestigious company. But instead of jumping straight into corporate life, he made a bold decision. Drawing inspiration from Mr. Whitaker, he chose to dedicate a year to expanding the nonprofit they had built together. He traveled across the country, meeting with communities in need and sharing his story to raise awareness and funds. Along the way, he met countless individuals whose lives had been touched by the organization, people who reminded him of his own journey and reinforced his belief in the power of compassion. When Marcus finally settled into his career, he did so with a unique perspective. Unlike many of his colleagues who focused solely on climbing the corporate ladder, Marcus prioritized using his skills and resources to uplift others. He advocated for diversity and inclusion within his company, pushing for policies that benefited underserved communities. He also mentored young professionals, offering guidance and encouragement to those trying to navigate the challenges of the working world. Through it all, Marcus stayed true to his roots. Despite his success, he never forgot the lessons he'd learned growing up: the value of hard work, the importance of family, and the transformative power of kindness. Whenever he felt overwhelmed or doubted himself, he thought back to that fateful evening when he'd given a sandwich to a homeless man. That simple act had sparked a chain reaction, changing not only his life but also the lives of countless others. Meanwhile, Mr. Whitaker watched proudly as Marcus carved out his place in the world. Though he was older now and less active than before, he remained deeply involved in the nonprofit, ensuring its mission stayed true to its founding principles. He often reflected on how far they had come since that first meeting on the street. What had started as a small gesture of kindness had blossomed into something extraordinary, a legacy of hope and resilience that would endure long after he was gone. One evening, as they sat together on the porch of Mr. Whitaker's modest home, a house he had recently purchased with the help of his renewed connections, Marcus turned to him and said, "You know, none of this would have happened without you. You gave me a second chance when I didn't even realize I needed one." Mr. Whitaker smiled, his eyes twinkling with emotion. "No, Marcus," he replied. "It was you who gave me a second chance. Your kindness reminded me of who I used to be and who I still could be. We saved each other in our own ways." Marcus nodded, understanding the truth in those words. Their journey had been one of mutual growth and transformation, a testament to the idea that even the smallest acts of kindness can create ripples that extend far beyond what we can see. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city they had both called home, Marcus felt a profound sense of peace. He knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but he was ready to face it head-on, with courage, determination, and an unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. Years passed, and Marcus's journey continued to unfold in ways that inspired everyone around him. His career flourished as he climbed the ranks within his company, but what truly set him apart was how he used his success to uplift others. He became known not just for his professional achievements, but also for his relentless dedication to giving back. The nonprofit organization he and Mr. Whitaker had founded grew into a nationwide movement, touching the lives of thousands of families and individuals who had been struggling to make ends meet. Marcus traveled frequently, visiting cities where the nonprofit had established new chapters. Everywhere he went, he shared his story, the story of a poor boy from the inner city who had once walked those same streets, hungry and uncertain about his future. He spoke openly about the night he met Mr. Whitaker, emphasizing that even the smallest acts of kindness could change someone's life forever. His words resonated deeply with audiences, sparking hope and inspiring action in people from all walks of life. But despite his growing fame and responsibilities, Marcus never lost sight of the values instilled in him by Mr. Whitaker. He remained humble, grounded, and fiercely loyal to his roots. During holidays, he always returned home to spend time with his family, cooking meals with his mom, and playing basketball with his younger siblings, who were now teenagers themselves. They often joked about how much their lives had changed since the days when they barely had enough food on the table. Yet through it all, they stayed close-knit, cherishing the bond that had carried them through their toughest times. Mr. Whitaker, too, remained a central figure in Marcus's life. Though age had slowed him down considerably, his mind remained sharp and his heart full of wisdom. He continued to serve as a mentor to Marcus, offering advice whenever needed and celebrating each milestone along the way. Their relationship had evolved into something akin to father and son, a connection built on mutual respect, gratitude, and love. One summer evening, as Marcus sat on the porch with Mr. Whitaker, sipping lemonade and watching the sunset, the old man turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "You've done so much, Marcus," he said softly. "More than I ever imagined possible. I'm proud of you." Marcus smiled, feeling a familiar warmth spread through his chest. "I couldn't have done any of it without you," he replied earnestly. "You believed in me when no one else did. That meant everything." Mr. Whitaker nodded slowly, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. After a moment of silence, he added, "There's one last thing I want to do before I go." "Go?" Marcus asked, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" The old man chuckled lightly, though there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. "We're all here for a limited time, Marcus. You know that as well as I do. But before my time runs out, I want to ensure that the work we've started together will continue long after I'm gone." Marcus swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the weight behind Mr. Whitaker's words. Though he didn't want to think about losing the man who had become like a second father to him, he understood the importance of planning for the future. "What do you have in mind?" he asked quietly. "I've updated my will," Mr. Whitaker explained. "I'm leaving the remainder of my estate to the nonprofit, to fund its programs, expand its reach, and support the next generation of leaders like you. It's my way of ensuring that our mission endures." Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes as he processed what Mr. Whitaker was saying. "You've already given so much," he murmured. "Are you sure this is what you want?" "Absolutely," Mr. Whitaker said with a firm nod. "This has been my purpose these past years, helping you, helping others. If I can leave behind a legacy of kindness and compassion, then I'll consider my life well lived." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The cicadas chirped in the background, and the faint scent of blooming flowers filled the air. Finally, Marcus reached over and placed a hand on Mr. Whitaker's shoulder. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice thick with emotion. "For everything." A few months later, Mr. Whitaker passed away peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by loved ones, including Marcus, whom he considered a grandson. His death left a void in Marcus's life, but it also strengthened his resolve to honor the old man's memory. At the funeral, which was attended by friends, family, and countless individuals whose lives Mr. Whitaker had touched, Marcus delivered a heartfelt eulogy. "He taught me that no matter how far you fall, there's always a chance to rise again," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the tears streaming down his face. "He showed me the power of kindness, the importance of resilience, and the beauty of believing in someone, even when they don't believe in themselves. Because of him, I learned to dream bigger, work harder, and give more freely. And because of him, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make the world a better place." The crowd erupted in applause, moved by Marcus's words and the profound impact Mr. Whitaker had clearly had on so many lives. As Marcus stepped away from the podium, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. Though he missed the old man dearly, he knew that Mr. Whitaker's spirit would live on, not just in the non-profit they had built together, but in every person whose life had been touched by their work. In the years that followed, Marcus dedicated himself wholeheartedly to carrying forward Mr. Whitaker's legacy. Under his leadership, the nonprofit expanded exponentially, reaching communities across the globe. It provided education scholarships, job training programs, mental health resources, and emergency aid to those in need. Marcus personally oversaw the development of mentorship initiatives designed to guide young people from underserved backgrounds toward brighter futures. His efforts earned widespread recognition, including awards and accolades from prestigious organizations. Yet, Marcus cared little for the titles or trophies. What mattered most to him was the difference he was making, the lives he was transforming, one act of kindness at a time. On the 10th anniversary of the nonprofit's founding, Marcus stood before a packed auditorium, addressing a crowd of volunteers, donors, and beneficiaries. Behind him was a slideshow featuring photos of smiling children, thriving families, and revitalized neighborhoods, all testaments to the organization's impact. As he looked out at the sea of faces, Marcus felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "This journey began with a single act of kindness," he said, his voice ringing clear and strong. A boy gave a sandwich to a homeless man, not knowing that it would spark a chain reaction capable of changing countless lives, including his own. That boy was me, and that man was Harold Whitaker. Together we proved that even the smallest gestures can create ripples that extend far beyond what we can see. The audience erupted into cheers, rising to their feet in a standing ovation. Marcus smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He had come so far from the cold streets where he'd first met Mr. Whitaker, yet he remained anchored by the lessons he'd learned along the way: humility, perseverance, and the transformative power of compassion. As the celebration continued, late into the night, Marcus took a quiet moment to reflect. He thought about his childhood, his struggles, and the incredible journey that had brought him to this point. Most of all, he thought about Mr. Whitaker, the man who had believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. Though Mr. Whitaker was no longer physically present, his influence was everywhere. In the laughter of children attending school for the first time, in the smiles of parents securing stable jobs, and in the hearts of volunteers dedicating their time to help others. Marcus realized that Mr. Whitaker hadn't just changed his life, he had ignited a movement, a ripple effect of kindness that would continue to spread for generations to come. And as Marcus looked toward the future, he knew that his work was far from over. There were still countless lives to touch, still so many stories waiting to be written. With renewed determination, Marcus vowed to keep moving forward, to honor Mr. Whitaker's legacy by living out the promise he had made all those years ago, to never forget where he came from, and to always pay it forward. Because in the end, that was what mattered most: using your blessings to bless others, creating a world where everyone had the opportunity to thrive. And so, the story of Marcus and Mr. Whitaker became more than just a tale of two individuals. It became a testament to the enduring power of kindness, resilience, and hope. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, a single act of compassion can light the way to a brighter tomorrow.